Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's just after 4:30, so in interest of time, we will start our meeting. So good afternoon and welcome to our virtual Public Information Center regarding the new draft official plan for the City of Belleville. We are very pleased to welcome you here today, and we would especially like to welcome Chief R. Donald Markle, Chief of the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte, who is joining us this afternoon. The purpose of this meeting is to provide information about the new draft official plan and to provide an opportunity for the public to ask questions. We'll begin with a presentation from our consultants for this project, Dillon Consulting. And they will provide a PowerPoint presentation which will discuss the official plan update process and the key changes made to the policies of the new draft official plan. There will be a question and answer period following the presentation. And so I just wanted to take this time to go over how to ask questions. You can ask questions in two different ways. Firstly, you can ask a question by typing into the chat box at any time. So the chat box will be monitored by our staff, and staff will read the questions one at a time to our project consultants to respond to following their presentation. If you would like to ask a question verbally rather than typing it into the chat box, you can also do this. You can do this by using the raise hand button, which should be at the bottom of the participants list on your screen. So if you press the raise hand button, a little blue icon, hand icon will appear beside your name. Staff will also monitor who have their hands raised, and we will get to each of you one at a time, and you'll have the opportunity to unmute yourself and ask your question at that point. So we will let you know when you'll have that opportunity as well. Now, although this meeting is being held virtually, each of us on this call should take this opportunity to reflect and to consider the land upon which we are standing or seated, wherever we are, and to consider the land upon which we are standing or seated, wherever we are, and to consider all of those who have lived from that land over the generations, and to consider especially the First Nations people whose ancestral homes and hunting lands these are. On behalf of the majority of people who are present in the City of Belleville, I would like to honor and thank the Mohawk people of Tyendinaga for welcoming us as neighbors to these lands upon which we live here in the Bay of Quinte. Thank you very much, and I will now welcome Monica Beliveau from Dillon Consulting, who will be providing the presentation. Again, please feel free to type your questions into the chat at any time. We will hold them until the end of the presentation when the question and answer period begins. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Desta. And just to confirm before I get too far ahead, are we able to see my slides? Yeah,
I am. Yes.
Okay,
yep.
Wonderful. It's a good first step. Thank you to everyone joining us this afternoon. We're pleased to provide an update on the official plan. I'll begin by introducing the Dillon team members who are joining today. My name is Monica Beliveau, and joining me is Roy Baksh. We're both planners at Dillon Consulting and have been pleased to be working with the city staff on this update for some time now. We're looking forward to providing information about the update today and receiving your feedback. Today we will begin with an introduction to the purpose of the meeting and provide background information on the work. The body of the presentation will focus on providing an overview of the updates to the official plan, or OP, and we'll be pleased to answer questions and take comments at the end of the presentation. As Desta mentioned, we'll begin with the purpose, which is to provide information in a presentation and for an opportunity for the public to ask questions in an informal manner. I'll just also note that there's another meeting next Monday, which is for the city's Planning Advisory Committee members, or PAC, and that is to formally hear and receive additional public comments regarding the new draft official plan. There's more information available on the city's website, including how to submit additional comments. So to provide some context, an official plan is a city's key land use document. It describes what kind of community we want to become in the future and sets goals, objectives, and policies which guide our land use planning decisions to work towards achieving those goals. Everything the city does relating to land use needs to conform to the plan. The current document was last updated in 2002, and the Planning Act requires cities to undertake regular reviews of their OP. The official plan review and update process consisted of 4 phases: review and analysis of land requirements, policy recommendations, and policy development, and then the implementation into the draft OP. So we're now entering that final phase, and the draft official plan has been prepared to provide updated policies to guide land use planning decisions for the city of Belleville. I'll provide a brief overview of each of these phases in more detail as well. The first phase consisted of the preparation of a critical background document, the Municipal Comprehensive Review of the Urban Service Area, or MCR. This was undertaken by Watson and Associates Economists Limited and Dillon Consulting. This provides a long-term assessment of future urban growth and associated urban land needs to inform and support the city's official plan. The analysis has determined that the city has sufficient residential, commercial, community facility, and employment lands for the next 20 years within its urban boundary. So there's no requirement to expand the urban boundary of the city, but there is a proposed land swap of lands located in the Canifton East Industrial Area for the lands adjacent to the Northeast Industrial Park. This information was presented at the Public Information Center and public presentation, which were held in June of last year. The MCR report included a section which translated the analysis from that report into policy directions to assist Belleville in effectively managing that land over the 20-year planning horizon. Policy directions are provided separately for residential, commercial, community facility, and employment lands, and are framed around the planning matters that are discussed in that report. Other issues are also required to be addressed, as required by the Provincial Policy Statement, or PPS, to ensure that the updated official plan is approved by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Next, the current official plan was revised based on the recommended policy directions identified in the previous step. During the process, the terms of reference for the update was expanded as a result of Council's priorities identified through the city's housing summit. This included modernizing housing policies, intensification policies, and mixed use policies in order to increase the supply of lands available for medium and high density residential development, which will ultimately increase the supply of rental units in the city of Belleville. These topics were addressed in the technical brief to support the official plan, which was titled Emerging Policy Issues, and this outlined those additional recommendations for updating the official plan. At this stage, the land use schedules and appendices were also prepared. So now we're in that final phase, the draft official plan. I will walk through an overview of some of those key updates which resulted from the previous steps. So the key updates include supporting a greater range of housing options, including affordable housing, guiding intensification to the right areas, supporting small businesses and employment areas, supporting a lively downtown and economic hub in the city center, promoting good urban design, support for active transportation, preserving and enhancing open space, protection of natural features, mitigating risks associated with the impacts of climate change, and promoting sustainability. Now, I'll touch on each of these topics briefly. So a number of updates were made to support a greater range of housing options in the city. These include supporting residential development at various densities within the city to ensure a full range of housing forms at different sizes and styles, including market-based and affordable housing that meets the needs of all citizens. For example, medium and high density uses in city center, which could include townhouses, stacked townhouses, apartment buildings, affordable housing, either as primary uses or within mixed use developments. The plan supports the development of adequate affordable housing for persons of low and moderate incomes in all residential areas as well. Also, the update integrates the permitting of the second unit dwellings. Next, to review intensification. So the purpose of intensification is to support the efficient use of land and existing infrastructure. New development should contribute to existing built-up areas as it promotes compact form, creates mix of uses, and allows for efficient use of land, infrastructure, and public services. Opportunities for intensification and redevelopment will be encouraged and promoted by the official plan through the creation of new units, uses, or lots on previously developed land, the development of vacant or underutilized lots within previously developed areas, the addition of accessory dwelling units, infill development, the expansion or conversion of existing buildings, and the redevelopment and revitalization of brownfield sites. Further, the phasing of development will encourage the orderly progression of development in greenfield areas and ensure that intensification targets are met and contribute to the economic extension and utilization of services, infrastructure, and community facilities so that future development doesn't result in an economic burden for the city. The plan also indicates that where intensification is proposed adjacent to an existing neighborhood, that the development must conform to those neighborhood characteristics of those areas and should provide an appropriate transition between the mature neighborhood that already exists and the intensification site. With regard to economic development, the plan supports small business, encouraging the establishment of retail small businesses, service commercial small businesses in the community, and promotes the downtown core as a major focus of economic activity. It ensures that suitable serviced employment lands are also available to meet the needs of all potential industrial and commercial investments, and will encourage remediation and redevelopment of underutilized lands. The plan protects agricultural lands from development as well, and expands on on-farm diversified uses, providing limited opportunities for those diversified uses, which could include home occupations, home industries, agritourism ventures, and uses that provide value-added agricultural products wherever appropriate. To support a lively downtown and economic hub in the city center, development should increase the diversity and vitality of the downtown and create a lively and vibrant environment that supports a wide variety of living, shopping, leisure, cultural, and work activities. Development that takes advantage of the Moyer River and Bay of Quinte is strongly encouraged by the plan. The use of ground floor space is intended to add activity to the street. Therefore, the conversion of existing ground floor non-residential uses to residential uses is discouraged. Commercial uses are generally encouraged to locate along main streets and key corridors. However, other uses which may activate the street are also encouraged. These could include institutional uses or flexible workspaces, or all kinds of other uses that COVID has introduced to us all. This plan encourages development at transit supportive densities. It also supports the community improvement plan incentives to revitalize the downtown. With regard to urban design, the plan promotes good urban design to foster a high quality and distinctive community image, to establish a pattern of interconnected streets and active transportation networks in which built form frames and activates human scaled public realm, to promote compact mixed-use development, to support development and redevelopment that is a good fit and compatible with its context, and to effectively integrate built cultural and natural heritage resources within development. This plan recognizes that in order to achieve a healthy and livable community, the transportation system now and into the future needs to reduce reliance on the automobile in favor of more sustainable modes of transportation. So things like walking, cycling, and transit. The plan supports design and construction of active transportation pathways and linked routes for non-motorized vehicles that connect residential areas to their wider community. The plan promotes an accessible physical environment and encourages the municipality to develop complete streets guidelines, which would set out guiding principles for the accommodation of pedestrians, cyclists, transit riders, passenger vehicles, and trucks in the construction of new roads and the reconstruction of existing roads. For open space, the plan supports the comprehensive parkland and recreation master plan, which is currently ongoing. It ensures that open spaces that are provided as part of a development are to a standard that is satisfactory to the municipality. It supports the protection and enhancement of the city's waterfront, enhances universal design with public facilities, parks, trails, seating areas, play equipment, open spaces, and recreational facilities, which should be of universal design and integrated into neighborhoods to facilitate healthy and active lifestyles for all ages and abilities. For natural heritage, the plan protects the natural heritage resources along with the ecosystem and biodiversity that they support. It encourages the adoption of a natural heritage system, which would delineate natural heritage features as defined by the provincial policy statement. These could include the provincially significant wetlands, significant woodlands, areas of natural and scientific interest, and their linkages. This includes the encouragement for the municipality to undertake additional work to field verify the natural features in the development of a natural heritage system. Related to climate change and sustainability, sustainable development is development that recognizes the interdependence of the economic, environmental, and cultural needs of the community. It promotes actions that expand economic opportunity, improve environmental quality, increase social well-being, and expands cultural engagement. This plan promotes sustainability in a number of ways, including improvement to the city's urban tree canopy, enhancing local sources of food in urban areas through community or urban agricultural uses, such as community gardens and rooftop gardens, encouraging green building design to reduce greenhouse gases in development, which is resilient and adaptable to climate change and natural hazards, encouraging investment in adaptable solutions when planning or replacing infrastructure in order to enhance resiliency and reduce vulnerability to the impacts of climate change, and supporting sustainable development of a compact, efficient urban area with a mix of land uses and residential density that optimize the efficient use of land. This is in order to reduce infrastructure and public facility costs, reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions, support pedestrian movement, cycling, and viable public transit, and conserve agriculture and natural resources within the city. Excuse me, I have to cough for a second. A lot of talking all at once. Each of these topics that I just went over are discussed in much greater detail in the draft plan. So I certainly encourage you to take a look and provide specific feedback as you see fit. But overall, the updates to the city's official plan are intended to really help achieve Belleville's vision, which is up on the screen right now. The key updates that were reviewed will move us towards that right direction. So I thank you for your time and attention, and we welcome any questions or comments.
All right, thanks, Monica. We do have a question from a Susan Finkel, who's registered here. Susan, if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question, you just need to unmute.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, obviously it's not Susan. I'm on her computer. Yes, my question, the area that I live in is on Briarwood Crescent in the east end of Belleville, and presently it runs south of the Bell Creek, as well as Edge Hill, which runs south of the Bell Creek as well. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. On Schedule D of the plan in the cycling and trails plan, yeah, that's perfect. It shows a proposed long-term trail, both biking and cycling and walking trail south of the Bell Creek that runs along there. My question is, when you're speaking of protection of natural features and the natural heritage system that you spoke of earlier, I see this being this is a wetland area. This is a bird sanctuary. This is the Bell Creek floodplain as well. I don't see this this being the only part of a wetland that a trail actually in the city of Belleville, I believe, goes through. I've done a little bit of research, and all the other trails and walking paths are on main streets and thoroughfares, and this happens to cut right through the Bell Creek. As I see, if this goes forward, this trail would have this would be a paved trail. This would have lighting on the trail. This would certainly interfere with the natural habitat that is in this this green space that we'd like to preserve and should be preserved. I think this is very detrimental to the green space. So my question is, how did the consulting company arrive at this location to put a trail right through from Hague Road to Farley, going right through a wetland, when all the other trails are on the city streets and the roads?
Thank you for your question. So this schedule, the cycling and trails map, was created from the data that we received from the Transportation Master Plan, which was completed in 2014, which provided the phased plans for all of those trails. I don't know the specific details of the type of trail that is proposed in that exact area, but I thank you for flagging that, and we can take a look to see if it is like a paved kind of more city center type trail that was flagged for that area, and then if so, note that in the plan.
Yeah, thank you on that. And I would imagine it's a very dark area, that it would probably have to have some lighting and obviously some electricity and whatnot. I can't imagine a trail going through there without, lighting, which would incur, problems with the city of Belleville if anything ever happens to a pedestrian or somebody on a trail in the darkness. I would like a little bit further input on this, because I'm certainly opposed to the trail, especially on either the south side. I don't understand why it wouldn't be on the north side to begin with, but at any point I'm opposed to the trail going through there. And if I could be, included in any future information on that, I appreciate that.
Could I ask a follow-up question in that regard? I happen to notice that, aside from the fact that the trail happens to fall within the wooded area immediately to the south, we have Edge Hill Road and Briarwood Crescent. If the intention by those that drew up the previous master plan was simply to provide a trail linkage between those two major connections, from your read of the immediate neighborhood, would having a cycling path along Edge Hill and Briarwood work a little bit better?
You do have, so Briarwood, Edge Hill, and all surrounding streets, there are no sidewalks. And right now the people are walking and they're cycling along both of those. So it is a natural way to access trail to trail. All the main arteries, and included with the new ones, are all seem to be covered for the trail. So I guess what I'm saying is there is enough trails there to begin with that I think this is redundant, and I think it spoils what natural wetlands that we have in the east end of Belleville that we'd love to preserve. We have in the past the city of Belleville has made some recommendation and has carried out some different procedures in the wetlands so the water flows properly. And I think if they concentrate on that and forego a trail actually going right through there, that there's enough trails and enough walkways around that we would be fine without it. So matter as the way I look at it is just stroke that completely out of there, and there's enough network here for trails and walking paths. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Monica, was there anything else as a follow-up from your end?
I was just going to pose a question back to the city about whether the Parks and Recreation Plan is dealing with any of the trail network as well.
Yeah, I can answer that. It's Steve Ashton. So again, this schedule isn't new information. It was approved by council 2014. I would look at it more as this is the general intention, but not, I wouldn't say that that's the exact location. So the transportation master plan is going to be due to be updated within the next 2 years. In that interim, there's the parks master plan as well. So that'll also inform the transportation master plan. But in terms of a trail in that area, it's not a priority at this point in time or in that area. But I would say that it is sort of a trail that is a general intention, but doesn't mean that it's not going to go on the street if they wanted to do a trail, say tomorrow, as opposed to through the natural area. So I think we've also had comments through, sorry, I forget, someone had contacted, I discussed this with someone about 6 weeks ago. And we do have, did provide those comments and those concerns about what you're talking about to the Parks Master Plan, as well as to the Transportation Master Plan update, although that's not going to happen for probably 1 to 2 years.
Do we have any additional questions lined up, Tom?
Yeah, so we have a question from Glenn. He's raised his hand. That would be the next person here.
Hello. I just wanted to, he half answered that first question, thank you. When the transportation master plan was going to be updated, because that is part of this whole story. It's difficult to assess a total plan without knowing the transportation side of it. So that's going to happen within 1 or 2 years, is that correct?
Well, that would be when staff would be recommending between the next year to 2 years that we would recommend that, but that would also be dependent upon budget approval by the city as well. So staff would be bringing that forward as a recommendation.
And it's based, I just want to confirm that it's based on this master plan, or is it related to this master plan at all?
So the transportation master plan is a separate document.
Yes.
But this Schedule D was taken from the transportation master plan.
Okay. My other question was around the Corbyville Village planning area. Is it okay to talk about that area at the moment? It's the opposite corner of the city.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yes, in the document, it said that buffering would be required for existing residential areas and new residential areas there. Can you describe better what kind of buffering are you talking about for this region? I know this may not be happening in a hurry, but anything that's put in an official plan, is always referred to and assumed it's locked in stone. So I'd be very curious. I'll find the section here that referred to that. Where'd that go? Yes, number 4.3.3 on page 80. How'd I do? Buffering should be required adjacent to residential or open space. Does that apply to existing residential? My address is, I'm across the River Road from the Corbyville Village planning area. My house is the first one past the distillery.
So this
Or the new-
would, yeah, this would come into play for new developments. So if a commercial land use was coming into play adjacent to a residential or open space area, like a park perhaps, then that is where we're talking about buffering. So if there was a new commercial use, that it would provide some kind of buffer, whether that's visual screening or sound mitigation, depending on the specific context. So it wouldn't be to do like for existing developments to implement a new thing.
Okay, but developments that are abutting this property, my question is, buffering is not specified in the official plan. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
For existing residential?
Yes, because there are a number of existing residents in this area that will be adjacent. And I just wanted to understand what kind of buffering would be included in such a plan for that area. Also, the question, the reason why I asked about the transportation master plan was, how will this area be accessed? Will it be from Highway 37 or from River Road? And that's a major impact on traffic on River Road, which has been, very busy, especially during the construction along Highway 62 and everything going on Sydney Street. It's a very busy road now.
I can maybe offer some further information in regards to how that policy in the official plan is going to get interpreted from a go-forward basis. So perhaps it would be ideal to maybe go back to that so we can look at it all together as part of me offering some advice to that. So again, simply to make sure that we are being crystal clear in our feedback, the policy only applies to new development coming forward. So if someone is going to propose a development that is commercial or industrial in its land use, and that development is going to be immediately beside an existing house, because the policy talks about buffering adjacent to residential, then what happens is that that commercial or industrial development is subject to something called site plan approval by the city, and the city gets to provide comment and direct the developer in regards to how the site is actually going to be configured. So perhaps the original proposal that comes in shows the building, that new building, very, very close to where the existing house is currently built. And then the city would look at that site plan application and what's being proposed, and it would look at this policy, and it would say, policy 433B, bullet number 5, indicates that you're supposed to be planning for buffering. So you should not be proposing your building that close to the existing house. You should consider how to reconfigure your site. You should reorient your building, add some landscaping, or do other things. That's essentially the mechanism of buffering that happens when we design and build out a site. And so that's how that would get applied in the real world every time a new development comes forward. That would be the guidance and how it would kind of operationalize on a day-to-day basis as Corbyville Village builds out over time. And it's intended to, provide that kind of sense of, if you're the house, then you have the enjoyment of your home, and you don't have large stores or other buildings right up against, and, overtaking your sense of your own immediate residence on your property. And then let's come back. I'll see if I can take a look at the River Road question. So perhaps if we could return to that map. And could you, would you mind restating the question again, and I'll do my best to offer an answer?
Yes, this Corbyville Village concept is a very interesting concept, but it's certainly not in many ways consistent with the infilling or the intensification of existing serviced land in the city of Belleville. I mean, this is on the perimeter. It's not serviced for the most part. So it's not going to happen in a real hurry. I understand that. But in the official plan, I'd like to be very clear on how would people access this property? Would it be from River Road or would it be from Highway 37? It's a very critical item for residents of River Road, I can tell you.
Yeah, certainly, I understand that. I think the simple answer, because I think it's here in plain view, is there is some uncertainty in regards to that specific question. And so the fact that you've raised it suggests to us that we certainly want to be able to have some certainty in that regard. And perhaps it's a good idea to add some policy in regards to how Corbyville Village is accessed. And so that's a takeaway for us in terms of moving the official plan forward from its current version to a more finalized version.
I appreciate that. Those were my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Our next question is from Ruth. Ruth, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you have the table.
Thanks very much. My first question has to do with the designation of local parks in the city. There are many parks, certainly in the east part of the city that I'm familiar with, that have been proposed to be designated as community facility as opposed to open space as shown in the current official plan. So I was curious as to why this switch from green to blue.
I'm trying to let me pull up the old official plan, see if I can see where the changes happened. So they were previously designated as.
Yeah, let's just go to the East Hill Park. It's right in the middle of the East Hill. Just zoom in the Corby Rose Garden, those are green. And so in the new official plan, you've colored them blue as community facility. There's several instances of that I've noticed, but those are two that I can draw attention to right away.
I can't remember the specifics behind that. I'm not sure if.
Or maybe it's just the color is hard to read. I didn't have the. Okay, all right. So it's just your green is very, very blue.
Okay. So that is a good note, though. We can increase the contrast of those colors.
It just on the printed copy, it looks almost the same color.
Okay.
So I have a question.
In this view, have they changed then?
No, they're green.
Okay.
I think they're green. It is hard to even on the screen to be sure.
I have noted that. Thank you.
If you could just pan over to the west side of the city. There's also a Schedule A, which is an Appendix A, about intensification areas. But I was curious about the fairgrounds area. Yes, thank you. That schedule. There's an area shown in red that is in the residential designation, and then of course the Belleville Fairgrounds lands, which are designated as community facility. I was curious as to the rationale for the area on the north part of Palmer Road being designated as an intensification area. And if that, then why not some of the other vacant lands in the area? And I was also wondering why the fairgrounds would be designated as a community facility when they are being actively considered for redevelopment by the city. There is a proposal for the new YMCA, which would be a community facility, but the balance of the lands, as I understand it, would be redeveloped. And I wondered if the city had considered that at this time being an appropriate opportunity to put them in a mixed use land use designation.
So to answer your first question about the choice to designate certain lands. So a number of lands were identified by city staff as potential areas for intensification based on the known land uses and the surrounding areas and whether they are corridors. And we went through with the definition of provincial policy statement to ensure that they did in fact meet all of the requirements, and these were the ones that did meet the requirements. And to answer part two, the fairgrounds, there are a couple of moving pieces happening at the same time as this work. So we are looking at having those designations changed concurrently, so that because of the timing of the work that's being undertaken by council, that to make sure that when the ministry approves this LP, that it doesn't de-designate them back to community facility. So we are monitoring that to make sure that the timing will work out.
Okay, thank you. I was curious, I guess, about the one on Palmer Road, just because it had had serious servicing constraints in the past. And there's a few sites like this in the Belleville West area that they're examining the servicing options. I'm not disagreeing that it doesn't have potential for intensification. It's just that it had servicing constraints, and perhaps those have been resolved. There's other vacant lands immediately to the south that are also being actively considered for redevelopment. So just wondering why those wouldn't have been grouped in at the same time as the Palmer Road lands to the north. There's just a question maybe for Steve or somebody else at the city.
Yeah, Ruth, it's Steve. So I'd have to go back to specific to that site. I'll have to check my notes on your specific question. I can respond to you. I think that was one of the first things we did about 1.5 years ago. So I'll have to check my notes over why we chose that specific site, and I'll have to get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Ruth, do you have any more questions, or are you okay?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Our next question comes from Darren. Darren, if you'd like to unmute your mic, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Just following up on Ruth's comments. So I'm actually representing the property owners along Palmer Road where this additional intensification area is identified. So I'm happy to report, yes, the servicing issues are being resolved. So there's a report into the city that deals with allocation and available capacity. But some questions back to Monica and Rory, just in terms of how your OP deals with these additional intensification areas. The plan identifies that Appendix A isn't part of the OP. So just, in terms of policy guidance, where do you look to in the residential designation to offer support for these additional intensification areas? So I get the emphasis on looking to develop more intensely and more mixed use, but just in terms of the framework of the OP, if you can just help walk me through that just to better understand.
While I am looking for the intensification section, I'll try to.
7.16, I think, or yeah, there it is, 7.16.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the appendices, while not formally part of the official plan, help to provide staff guidance for when they receive an application for these areas, that this is the type of development that we'd like to see. So the policies provide that level of guidance for those specific areas. So they are a bit more flexible to provide a bit of a framework.
Yeah, I think Monica
so
used the right word there, Darren. And I'll just elaborate a little bit further. With first,
Sure.
Nice to hear your voice again. It's been ages since we were last in touch.
Yes.
It's good to know that you're still out there. And that's indeed kind of how we landed on things. We were going back and forth about whether or not we should actually draw the dotted line on the official plan land use schedule, if we should simply have a policy that makes reference to Watson's report, or if we should put in an appendix map, which is kind of like a halfway point of at least having something that's part of the official plan that can at least provide an indication. So that's the route that we took for the draft, was to create the Appendix A map that is currently there, and then to build out the, to have the policy 7.116 to acknowledge that it exists. And that's also for the reason that the work that Watson did was mostly a desktop exercise, and a more thorough intensification analysis that essentially would involve a windshield survey and kind of a more site-by-site analysis in regards to actual potential was not done as part of that scope of work. So typically where I personally have put the line into the official plan on the land use schedule, it's because it's backed up by a more thorough analysis.
Right.
And so in this case, it was also not just like a decision about how to put it into the official plan and to take the middle ground, but it's also because we hadn't really had the opportunity to do the site-by-site analysis. And typically, as I said, once you do a site-by-site analysis for a full-blown intensification study, then there's a lot more confidence to actually put it into the official plan proper. Now, the city could choose to do that work in future years, and then might do it as part of a future update. But we think this is a logical place to land on the intensification. We were not silent, but we also, we're not in a position to mandate it by putting it on one of the schedules.
Okay, thanks for that, Rory.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. Does anybody else that's registered feel like speaking? We have an open opportunity.
So not seeing any further questions pop up. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, there's nothing in chat and no one's currently raised their hand at the moment.
Okay. Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for coming and participating in this virtual public information center. As Monica identified in her presentation at the beginning, there is an opportunity to provide formal comments on the draft official plan. That's in 1 week time. December 7th is our virtual public meeting. You are able to register for the virtual public meeting by emailing planning@belleville.ca. If you want more information sent directly to you, you can also type into the chat function with your email address, and we would be happy to communicate more information regarding the public meeting to you to that email as well. Just keep in mind that if you're typing your email into the chat function, that it could be made public. You can also contact us via the other means for more private messaging. Also, if you had more specific questions regarding your implications on your personal property, you can also contact us at any time, and we'd be happy to answer any of those questions. So that being said, the public meeting that is taking place in 1 week, you do need to register in advance for, so please make sure to contact us if you're interested in providing verbal comments there. You can also provide comments in writing to us. You can do that through our website, www.belleville.ca/OP review. There is a feedback form that you can fill out, or again, you can email us at planning@belleville.ca with your formal comments. We look forward to receiving any comments or additional feedback if any come up after this meeting. But I would like to thank everybody again for participating. Thank you to our consultants, Monica and Rory, for the great presentation today and for answering all of these questions. And I suppose if there's no further questions, then we can close this meeting, this Public Information Center for now. And unless there's any last remaining. Okay, I'm not seeing anything come up. Thank you all very much. Have a great night.